In this video, we're going to look at the menu structure of the XA20. It's very similar for the XA40, so for the Canon XA20, this is the menu. On our screen here, again, this is a touch screen. You also have a rocker control in the back here that you can use to control it as well. I'm going to use the touchscreen functionality here for this demo. First of all, I want to point out, with the display fully illuminated like this, where I have all the options on, I have turned on here the cross grid that shows me my rule of thirds. I also have a lot of information about here, kind of how much time is remaining on my battery, how much record time is left on the SD card that's inserted right now, the format that I'm recording at, so I know that I'm recording at 2997 progressive at 17 megabits per second as an MP4 file. I know that my image stabilization is turned on. I'm currently not recording, it's in the pause. This is my current time code that it's going to record at to my clip. This is the function button to get into the menu. We'll do that in a moment. These are currently my shooting settings, so I'm at f1.8 at 1/60th of a second with 0 dB added, and intelligent autofocus is currently turned on for this, and that button down there lets me take a picture. So I'm going to hit the function button. This is the first thing I like to do when before I start a project. I'm going to go to the menu. I'm going to hit menu now from the function. I'm going to go right over to the wrench here, and we're not going to go do a lot of stuff, but here there is a time zone and a date and time area. If you go in the time zone, you see it actually is correct, New York time, that's fine. But if I go to the date and time, I always like to make sure that it's accurate to where I want to be. So if I want to change the date and time, this is where I change it to make sure that I have the current date and time for my shoot. And that's good for keeping track of your shoots. I can go over everything in here. There's a lot more stuff that you can go through, and this is just to fine tune your camera settings to how you like them. There's also, at the very bottom, there's a reset all. So if you ever get a camera, especially from a rental shop, and someone changed language or something like that, if you go to the wrench, go all the way to the end, hit the reset all, it's going to reset it back to the factory defaults. And that way you'll be able to get there where you want to go afterwards. Now the second menu here, this is actually my format. So first thing I like to do, again, I'm going to go way to the bottom here, initialize. Always do this whenever you put your SD card into a different camera, because each SD card needs to be formatted for the camera that it is currently in. So if you just use your card in a DSLR and now you're bringing it to the Canon, make sure you format it again so that way the proper settings are on the card. So I'm just going to hit right here to the right there. Now again, there are two slots in this one. I only have a card in the first slot. That's why only one is illuminated. Press there to actually tell me how much total space is on the card and how much you have used on the card. The type of card says it's class 10. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the initialize. Always asks for confirmation. That's good to make sure you didn't do it by accident. And in this one, there's actually a complete initialization, so it does a right through and erases everything to make sure it's really good. I'm just going to hit the quick initialization. So hit yes there. Okay, hit yes. There we go. And that just takes a quick moment, and we're done. If we go back to the top of the menu here, movie format is something to look at. So there are two different movie formats that you can record in. I always record in the highest quality on these cameras is going to be MP4. AVC HD is a highly compressed video format. If you do have to stretch out for a long recording with a small SD card, it can help you out, but I prefer the higher quality of MP4. And then you also have then if you come down a little bit more, there is the frame rate. So this is where I'd go in and choose between 2997 or 2398, or just very simply 30 frames or 24 frames per second. So do I want that film look, or am I shooting for TV? If you're shooting for TV, you're going to leave it at the 2997. Some other things that I'm kind of glancing over here. One cool thing about having two different card slots in your camera is whether you want to do a dual record or relay record. I mentioned in the last video, the dual record means it's going to record to both card slots at the same time, so if one card fails, you still have a backup. Really good for really important events. The relay record will allow it to go from one card to the other, so when card A fills up, it'll automatically start recording on card B. There may be a momentary lapse in the image, like a fraction of a second. You probably won't notice it ever, but that is what that is for. And there's a lot of other great things in here. Did mention the time code at the beginning. So time code mode, if I go in here, there is the preset, or the, I just leave it on the default here, but under here, time code running mode, oops, get back there. If I go in there, you have free run or record run. So free run, it means it's just gonna keep going. Once you set it, it's gonna keep going. Record run, it's only gonna record once you start going. So if you did have a new camera that you just took up, like we saw on this one, it was already 5 hours of time recorded. If I go in here where it says initialize, I can set it back to 0, or I can set it back to any time I want, but I'm gonna set it back to 0. When I hit OK, we get back out here and go back to the top here. Now you can see my time code is at 0000, and that's where I like to start with a new project. To change shooting modes, if I go into function, there's a lot of stuff in here on the first menu that we went past really quick before. So we have our record programs. So we can record in program mode, shutter priority, aperture priority, or full manual mode. These are all the settings for it. And when you select one of them, so if I select aperture priority here, then it allows me to adjust the aperture right from this menu, which is very nice. So now I can use the touchscreen, or I can use the joystick on the back to adjust that aperture. Again, you have shutter priority as well, or you have full manual mode that will let you adjust your aperture, your shutter speed, and your digital gain. So digital gain on the camcorders like ISO on a DSLR, where it's going to allow you to artificially increase the brightness of the image by adjusting that. And once it's set, get the X out button. Also, I want to point out right here, there's this little button here. I like to have this turned on. This is zebra striping, and what that's going to do is going to show you anything that's overexposed in the frame with little zebra stripes. It is not going to record those zebra stripes, so it's going to let you know what the most exposed area of that frame is. Also in this function menu, you have your white balance settings. So there are a lot of presets in here. So we have automatic, which you should not use, outdoor setting, you have shade, cloud, 2 different types of fluorescent lights, tungsten light, and then 2 manual sets that you can do down there, and also a Kelvin setting where you can dial in your own set if you would like to. So choose the appropriate white balance in here for whichever your shooting condition is, and then you can X out of there as well. The thing to point out here is your image stabilization. So this is currently turned on. This is currently at dynamic. You can put it on standard, or you can shut it off. And one important thing to point out on the side here, you have an AF/MF button. This will turn on and off the autofocus. So if you see intelligent autofocus is currently on, so it's going to try to focus on whatever it sees. If I shut that off, now I can use the ring in front on the camera lens to set the focus area. So those are the basic settings of the menu. There's a lot more that goes into it. If you want to really explore, I either suggest just sitting down with the camera and going through it, or reading the manual and seeing what other hidden gems are inside the camera.